Hey there, you're listening to Making Spaces, the podcast about community, culture, and making new connections, hosted by my good Judy, my friend and yours, Sarah Heath. On this podcast, we're having conversations about design, literally making spaces, and how some of the most inclusive spaces aren't always the most inviting. And we're talking about what it means to make space for one another. With the world the way it is right now, we need to find ways to have conversations across lines of radical difference. So join Sarah each week as she tackles the intersection of design and practical spirituality with conversations with some of the most fabulous guests you're ever going to meet. Some will talk about actual design, some of us will talk about relational design, but no matter what, it's an incredible time. So grab yourself a cup of whatever you like, and welcome to Making Spaces with Sarah Heath.
How are you guys doing?
We are making. I mean, how is everybody doing? It's like, is anybody doing great? Like, who is the person who is doing great right now? That is a person that I don't know if I need to be friends with. You know?
I will say that I just saw a photo of Justin Trudeau's quarantine scruff. He looks like he's doing great. And I was like, how long have you been alone that you're checking out the Prime Minister?
I mean, he's cute. Let's be real. He's a cutie. I have to go check out his scruff now.
Hello, friends. I'm excited to share this week's conversation with my dear friend, Jessie McLaughlin. Jessie is the creator and designer behind Jessie Lane Interiors in LA. Her work includes bold colors and original multi-purpose furniture. Jessie and I talk about how dental office design was influential in her life, why we sometimes second-guess our own intuition, and we also talk about some helpful tips for maintaining sanity during this time of sheltering in place. She is truly such a joy in my life, and I'm delighted to share her with you. Stick around for the weekly takeaway and an inspirational quote, and also a show announcement at the end. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, even in the midst of chaos.
Yes. Thank you for asking me. My pleasure. I don't know what I'll be able to contribute, but I'm happy to
so much. You have no idea.
Talk with you, so that's good. That's something.
I know. So I talked yesterday with a bunch of Canadians, well, not a bunch of them, 2 of them. And I gave the disclaimer, like, my accent, whenever I'm around people that are from the 3 areas that I'm from, like, so either like my Southern accent or my Canadian accent or kind of my British accent, like, just comes out. So I'm so afraid that people will listen to episodes back to back and be like, what is she like making fun of people? Why does her accent? But I find that whenever I'm with you and our other friend, Ginny, and when we're all together, or Chrissy, all of us together, forget about it.
It's a thing. I mean, many people have said that to me. As long as you're not openly mocking me, which you would not do, but I've had happen recently, in fact.
Really?
I don't even think people know that they're doing it, but it is like shocking. It happened at the gym recently, and you know, I just had to think, I just had to feel sorry for the woman who was doing it, because clearly she is lacking in self-awareness.
Yeah, something is missing in you. Some sort of like, don't do this.
Yeah.
Gene is missing in you.
Yeah.
I always like to start the show by asking, where is your favorite place? But I know that you are like me and the word favorite is overwhelming. So where is a place that you like? It doesn't have to be your absolute favorite. No one will judge you for this. It can be anywhere in your home, internationally, literally like anywhere. And why do you love it?
I so appreciate how well you know me. That's true. When I saw that question, I was like, oh my gosh, what is my favorite place? Well, I love this place and I love this place. No, but then I thought, well, because we are in the middle of quarantine, and I just redid our guest room and turned it into...
Which I love. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I turned it into a guest room / office for me. And I am really loving it for multiple reasons. One is because it's one of, besides our bedrooms and bathrooms, it's one of the few rooms in the house that has a door that you can shut on it. So that has been wonderful, especially while everybody's at home.
Jessie is the parent of 2 boys.
Yes, I have a 16-year-old. Crazy. He just turned 16, and we actually had to cancel his 16th birthday party because of all of the COVID craziness. But yeah, and an 11-year-old. And so I have been able to come into this room. It's pretty colorful. I'm a big fan of color, and so has a little sofa that I designed that I'm hoping to be able to sell in the next few months.
It's the coolest design.
Oh, thank you.
It is the coolest design, and just that you came up with that. And it is. You pushed me on color. You and I have, we're very similar people, and we have a very similar aesthetic. But the one thing I do not have is a penchant for color. So I'm so grateful that you have the penchant for color.
Sometimes I'm like, is this like too much? Is this, I don't know. But I've decided I'm trying to just embrace who I am.
Yeah.
Because often I'm like, I should do more neutrals. Like it's not enough. And then I thought, you know what? I'm never going to be the neutral person. Like that's probably just not me. And so I need to be okay with that. I actually started wearing aqua eyeliner during this quarantine, and I don't even know why, but it just felt right.
I love that.
I'll have on my like workout pants and my sweatshirt that I've been wearing for 3 days and aqua eyeliner. So it's a thing.
I have to tell you, you know how much like I care about fashion, or at least like looking like I'm put together a little bit. I do have like workout Sarah, and then I have like, you know, the Pacific Northwest Patagonia Sarah. But in general, I try to like I like heels, I like hats, I like all that. I, in the beginning of all of this quarantine stuff, went on a run, and for some reason I got plantar fasciitis so bad that I could barely walk, and I have to wear these. The only thing I can walk really well in right now are these recovery sandals.
Oh, Sarah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're like the Croc of sandals. They're literally made out of the same material as Crocs. And I feel like I need to apologize to people when I see them. Like, this is not normally what I do. But at the same time, it's literally giving me, they're called UFOs. And the ones I have on now they're not hideous, but
I'm going to look these up, and I think you should just make them a thing.
Make them a thing.
The 90s, the chunky, clunky shoes are in right now, you know? So I believe in you.
Thank you.
I think
That's
you
so
just
kind.
wear them and don't apologize for them. And
yeah, my friends and I have started a hashtag, just sort of confessions during this time. And I was like, I've been wearing the same sandals for 2 weeks since this happened, and it's just funny because like no one's seeing them other than my neighbor kids. Their family is like right below me, and they have kind of adopted me from the very beginning of all of this. Like they knew they were going to have to do laundry in my house, and our houses are so, you know, you've seen my place, it's so close to theirs that they're like, well, we can't, so why don't we just say that we will be quarantined together?
that's great.
I think it's also because they're like, can our kids come up to your house? They're so great. I love their kids. And their kids come and walk my dog, and it gives me a chance to be around other humans, because one of the things that we're noticing is just how many people are missing being around other humans during this time.
Yeah, for sure.
It is difficult, to say the least. Mm-hmm. So I want to know, how did you get into design? Because did you study it in college?
I did not. I was a music and comm studies major at UNC. Go Tar Heels.
I'm a Duke graduate. She's doing that just to make me angry. Coach K, my Coach K bobblehead fell over and he broke off of it. It's like the only like super kitschy thing I have in my, not in my house, but in like, you know, in my living room, I have a Coach K bobblehead. And I was like, this is Jessie. This is her. He fell over. He broke himself. But I put him back together. So, yeah, you went to UNC.
Yeah, I went to UNC. Did not study interior design. Wish I had now, of course. I grew up around my mom. I grew up around my mom. I grew up, what's the word? Just immersed in interesting interior design. My mom would design all of my dad's dental offices, which is a weird thing, obviously, because most dental offices, are not super interesting.
Oh, I cannot wait to tell you a story.
But she wanted to make these spaces beautiful, and so he had multiple dental offices, and she would go in, and they would be like these works of art. And people, even the outside of the buildings, it was always something that people commented on. And she also did a lot of DIY stuff. Like I remember her deciding that she wanted to redo the kitchen, and she figured out how to lay the tile herself, and grout it and cut it and had a tile cutter. I mean, it was a big deal.
I get her. Yes.
Yes. I remember as a little girl helping her pull wallpaper down. We would spray the wallpaper with, I guess water bottles or some kind of cleaner in there. I don't even remember. And
steam it.
Yep, steam it. That's what we did. Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
And
not obviously. There's an entire generation, Jessie, of people who have no idea how wallpaper appears nor how it comes down.
But apparently I'm in that generation because I totally forgot. But
it's coming back around. Everybody needs to learn.
And then, pull off. It's so satisfying. You pull off the little pieces, and sometimes you get the whole.
Oh, it's like an orange. Yep.
Yes, it's amazing. So there should be like some kind of game that you can play on your phone that is just like simulating pulling off wallpaper, because it would be super satisfying.
Or pulling glue off your hands when you were a kid.
So she, I went to lots of antique shops with her, and different, like one of my favorite things about interior design is the vendors and just the individual people that you meet. I have the person that I go to like for upholstery, and my Persian rug guy, and
You have a Persian rug guy. That's impressive.
Well, but we've become really great friends. Like, he's an amazing human, and he's been in this business it was passed down through his, I think, great grandfather in Iran, and then he came over here, and now he sells them. But this is a family business, and so the history, he's taught me so much, and is so kind, and I love being able to refer people to him, or take clients to him. So I think that is one of my favorite things that I learned from my mom too, is like any business that you're in, you get this kind of team of people that help you make it happen. And it's, mutually beneficial, which I think those mutually beneficial relationships are just what I aim for when
it's
everybody's
so
happy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's been incredible to watch you even like, I remember one of the first times I went to your house, it's always a work in progress, and you're always doing different things. And it was beautiful in the start. And then just your vision of it is one thing that I love about having kind of that design eye is that I feel like both of us, when we go into a space, we look around and we see the space, but then we see beyond the space to what could happen in the space. And for both of us, I think there's a sense of like really cool gathering can happen in the space. I think about even your home where your library / living room where the couch is just so big, right? But it's because everybody's at your house all the time, except for right now. But you can definitely get 6 feet apart on this couch. And I remember it was your birthday party and there were all these women just hanging out in that one area and on that one couch. And I think you can envision that almost when you go into a space, like what can this space be beyond what it is right now? And I love, like, most people would think a dental office is like, don't worry about it. But how much ease can you bring someone when they're in a beautiful space?
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny because at the dental office, there was a wedding. My mom had parties there, and there was a wedding in the dental office. And, I think, I'm sure I've never really thought about how important how much I saw that growing up, that like spaces can be multi-purpose. And that's really one of the, I think, if there are like pillars of my design philosophy, that is one of them, that spaces should be multi-purpose. Which is one of the things I love about the office, is that it's a guest room and an office. Whereas before it was, it wasn't, of course it could have been an office, but it wasn't really working well for that. And so I've kind of changed it now so that it actually works well as an office, because that's what it does get used for most. And yet we also have a lot of guests. But that, as I've even looking at furniture, seeing what's on the market, that is one of the things I think that I have a passion for, is making pieces of furniture that will serve multiple purposes, because most people's homes are used for multiple things. You have people over, but you are doing your kids' homework at the kitchen table, and you're, doing projects, and hopefully having parties or having dinners or having coffee with friends at your house, but also just living life there and having animals. We got to have the animals, and like dogs. I'm not talking about other animals. We just finished Tiger King, so not those kinds of animals, but dogs and cats and reptiles, small
based
reptiles.
On you know what, people, I have friends who have chickens in LA, so let's just say you can have it.
Listen, which I wish I had chickens right now. We went like a while without eggs, and it has made me so grateful for eggs, and understanding why so many people have chickens. But yeah, I think like the multi-purpose, making spaces that work for people, even really small spaces, especially if you live in a big city and you are in a tiny apartment, or just have a smaller home. It wasn't our first house, but our second house in North Carolina, our living room, my husband is tall. He's a big man.
He's 6'7"? Is that right?
Yes. And our living room, it was so tiny. And it's so funny that you say that about the couch, about our couch now, because I stuffed the biggest couch.
Oh, look at mine. It's huge.
I love that though. It's funny, I bought a couch and a love seat. And when the people delivered them, I realized that there was no way they were going to fit in my living room. And this was, now I've learned, I hope I've learned the measure again.
Yeah. It's always measure twice, cut once,
Yes.
is what my dad always used to say.
That's the quote. Or you can just completely botch it and say measure, measure, measure.
Just keep measuring, which is actually, that should be my life motto, because the number of times I'm like a quarter of an inch off.
It's like I will be learning that lesson for the rest of my life. But yeah, in our second little house, in Fuquay,
yes.
North Carolina. Mm-hmm. It was after I had graduated from college, but it was our living room. I wish I could remember. It was so teeny. I need to get the measurements just for fun. And it looked smaller because my husband was so big in it, you know. But we ended up faking a sectional with the love seat and the sofa. My grandpa made a kind of like wooden board that we put in the corner, and the arms were low, so we took one of the cushions off, and I threw a blanket over the arm.
I love it.
And the whole room was just sofa. But you know what? We got some people in there.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is it's always making space for people. I look at I don't know if you know, but my couch is actually a bunch of chairs. It was designed like that, and when I bought it, it was that way. But it is literally, let me count. It is 6 separate chairs.
I love it.
But it's designed to be modular, and you can move it in all these different ways. But when you put it all together, it looks like a quite formal couch. And the reason that I've done that is I've moved to a bunch of different spaces. In my last place, there was nowhere this size couch could fit. And so then I had one of the pieces in my office as a reading area, which I never sat in and read. So it sounds really uppity. I did not ever read in it. But it was there just in case that ever happened. But I think having spaces that are multi-use, and I love that you were inspired by your mom redoing a space that most people don't think of as the potential of being a multi-use space, because when I was in college, I took an aptitude test because, like you, I had no idea. I wanted to be something different depending on every day of the week. And so I was getting my biology degree, and I got all of my observational hours to go into veterinary school. And I just didn't feel like that was going to fulfill me because I was still doing art and acting and loving those things. And so I took an aptitude, like these counselors are supposed to like help you figure out what you're supposed to be. And I took an aptitude test, and her answer, so I get in there and she's like, this has never happened before. You scored the same across all areas. And she said, but interior design and veterinary, she said, you could design the interior of veterinary offices. And I was like, that is the most aggressively specific advice anyone has ever given another human ever. And here she was like giving me that as like, ta-da. I was like, I was that day, I was like devastated. I was like, nothing will make me happy. Even though she was saying like the whole world is open to you, what I heard was like, nothing will make you happy.
Oh, wow. That is impressive.
And so it's so interesting to me how like I've had my ministry career. I've flipped every church I've ever worked at without even realizing that I was using those passions and skills. And that, I think there is this, I love that you are a designer. You're getting pretty well known, my friend. I do. I look on the Instagrams. And I love that because it is something that was just a passion inside of you and self-taught, like your mom. It's like, we can figure this out. Or even your grandpa, who's like, we can make this into a sectional. How did you feel when you got your first client?
I still have so far to go, and I feel like I'm every day I'm learning something new, and I was hoping to launch my website this month, and clearly that is not going to happen because it's just I'm struggling right now because I think it feels everything is so heavy right now.
Right. Yes.
And it just does not feel like the right time to launch that. And I know that people still need beauty and art. And I mean, that's what I want. But just for me personally, I just have felt like, it doesn't feel like the right time to put that out in the world. So I'm going to wait, and that's okay. But what was the question? Where am I going with this? Oh, I just constantly feel like I'm in over my head, honestly. And like somebody else probably knows better than I do. And
I just want to let you in on the secret that's every single career.
Yeah, and that's what I hear. And so I just keep telling myself that. And then, design is so... it's subjective. There's not a right and wrong. I mean, one time I had a client who wanted to put 3 lazy boys in their living room, and they had a pretty small living room. So I said no.
That was wrong.
So that's all
there
wrong.
are some wrongs.
That was wrong. But beyond that, like it's so much opinion and I'm gonna like color, like you and I were saying, and you're probably gonna be drawn more to neutrals, and neither one of those is right or wrong. It's preference. So
well, that's the beauty of it, right? Without being formally educated, but yet also having the eye for it. Having clients, they've contacted you because they've seen your work, and then they think, I want that. And that's just a natural thing. And then, yes, you can learn all the things that maybe go along with it, like portfolio work and all that sort of stuff. But an eye is an eye. And I think it's one of those neat things, like some of us are just given that gift. And I think for so long, I didn't realize I had it. It's just a natural second nature. And sometimes we devalue the things that are second nature, right?
100%. Oh, and I've done a lot of that.
We're going to take a brief break from this conversation to listen to some messages from our sponsors that make this podcast possible.
Just recently, as I was working on this website, I hired a graphic designer who is also a dear friend. And it was really good because it gave me this perspective, because I have never felt like graphic design is my specialty, obviously. And,
not mine.
But of course I can look at something and say, ooh, that resonates, or look at something and say, no, that doesn't. And it was really helpful. It helped me actually to have a little bit more value for, I guess, what I do, because I think when you're doing it, you just feel like, well, anybody can do this. And the thing is, it's not brain surgery. And that's what I tell myself when I'm in a bad place and I can't make a decision. I'm like, look, nobody's going to die if you don't pick the best tile for this project. And I'm very grateful about that. But it is, it's like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I look at. This is what I love. This is what I hope that I have, some gifting in. And I felt that when I was using my graphic designer friend. I'm like, wow, it is so wonderful to have somebody who is better at this than I am.
Yes.
And I am willing to pay her for that and want to pay for her for that, because I can't do this. Like, what I would come up with would not be what she would come up with. And I think, of course, together, we can come up with something that makes us both really happy. And the thing that's exciting is, like, as I've showed people, okay, this is my logo. How do you feel about this? So many people have said, wow, I really feel like this is you.
I love that.
That made me so happy. And it's definitely not something I could have gotten to on my own. And yet, because I was working with this person that I had this, not only this close relationship with, but also who is just a talented graphic designer, she was able to help me find a logo that really feels like me. And so I hope that that's what I can do for clients, is help them create a space that is like makes them feel most comfortable, but also is like their highest, I don't know, how they would see themselves on their best day.
I love that. I think that's the beauty, right? That's the bringing out the beauty that people don't see in themselves.
Right.
Someone telling you that logo looks like you, to be seen.
Right.
The way that an artist sees you and can pull something out of you. And like even someone's space, if they're taking the things that even belong to you, but putting them in a different way.
Yes, absolutely.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And that is the thing, I think, I'm working through a lot of my, just personal shame with like, that interior, to pay for an interior designer is a privilege. For most of my life, I would not have been able to do that. So I'm like, why would somebody want to pay me? Because I certainly could not have paid someone to come decorate for, most of my life. But as I'm working through like what my desire would be, that like we can all design, good design benefits everybody. It doesn't have to be like for somebody who can afford to hire an interior decorator. Like, even when it was like, man, I was painting my table I got off of Craigslist 100 times. Rhett would come home from work and be like, why are you painting that table again? And I would be like, because I didn't like it. It wasn't working for me. So no matter what, though, no matter where we are, feeling at home in a space, feeling like a space represents us, you can do that with a little bit of money or a lot of money, and I think the thing also that's comforting to me is like sometimes people have a lot of money and their spaces don't feel representative of them, or don't feel homey or cozy or like a place I would want to go and hang out. So I don't know, that is really important to me, that you can love your space, and whether that means, loving it from the stuff that you found at the thrift store, which I still love a good thrift store run, or loving it because you just ordered something new that you're excited about. I think both can be done.
Yeah, I think there is something to it. We forget what happens mentally to people who are in the midst of, even if it's moving or they've gone through trauma or whatever it might be, there is this interesting thing that happens when you change a space, that the interior of the person can alter and change. I think that design really can bring out beauty, not just in the space, but in a person. It can bring out beauty in a sense of like ownership of a space. It can bring out beauty in how someone values themselves. It can bring out all these different pieces, because in some ways design is a symptom of what's going on sometimes, right? So when I go into a church and it's very dilapidated, what that tells me is the community might be in a difficult season, and don't have the volunteers to keep it going. Or when I go into a space and it clearly is of one generation, definitely owns that space. So then to me that says you haven't valued the voices. You've only valued like one group or whatever it might be. And I think there is, I'm jokingly saying, but it's not a joke because I mean it. I would love to move our culture from like DIY, which I think is great because obviously I like to fix everything. But what does DIT look like? Doing it together. So feeling like we don't have to do all of this stuff apart. So when someone says, man, I really like to redo a space, or I would love to think through this space differently, to think that they have people they could lean on, that is their second nature. Now, I think about when our friend moved and was really missing home and the beauty that took place inside of her when we were able to I was able to watch you just sort of help her design her living room, and it became a place of pride. When originally it was hard for them to move from somewhere where they could have quite a large home to somewhere where they have a small home that they're renting. There is something that happens in that ownership, and that I love. It's almost, I was talking to a designer for my last podcast that went out, and he was, talking. I said, it sounds like a pastor. Sometimes what you're doing is you're helping people see the not yet of a space, and the not yet of themselves even. You said bringing it to your highest self.
Yeah.
And we devalue that.
It's so true. I mean, I had kind of I think during this quarantine, we've all had ups and downs and good days and bad days. And yesterday, I think, was a little bit more of a rough day. And I decided I was going to make my bed today. Mm-hmm. And, it's so small. Like, I don't love my bedroom right now. I'm itching to redo it, and we'll see when that happens. But making my bed makes such a difference.
That has been one of the things I promised myself the whole time working just from home, is that I make my bed every day.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like, I don't shower, but I made my bed, and I clean my dishes every day, because I think my mental state is affected by my external. And if there is a possibility for me to caregive for my external, it's actually caregiving for my internal. And it sets the tone of, like, I may be walking from my bedroom to my desk, which is in what many people would have as a dining room space. That has set a time apart, right? So I've made my bed, and now I'm starting my day.
Yep. It's so true. I can walk in there and it feels like, oh, I did something. I accomplished something. There's care. Taking that moment just to slow down and make it makes a huge difference. And yeah, I think that's true. It seems so simple, but it's like doing the dishes. I mean, like you said, that is, even if you don't get them done, obviously, and you make the bed, but then, like, if I move to the kitchen and I just even put the dishes in the sink, that's huge. Like, that makes me feel like I breathe easier. And especially, right now we're all on top of each other. And even in that, I know that there's, like, huge privilege, because, we have separate bedrooms. That's a big deal. I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, like the little things, the washing the clothes, getting the clothes washed and put up. And I also know that, like, I'm trying not to put pressure on myself, and pressure. It's like, we're all just making it right now. But I do agree that, like, the space that we live in, the way that we take care of it can be a reflection of how we take care of ourselves. And that's not, like, for me, it's the same as, like, drinking water. I'm the worst at hydrating, and I'm trying to get away from shaming myself about not hydrating and just thinking, like, how can I love myself by drinking some water? Instead of just feeling like, why won't I drink water? What is wrong with me? So, yeah.
Well, I think that it's really fun for me to watch you bring this just giftedness of making space for people, because it's never, I feel like with all of your design elements, the room is always welcoming. It's always bidding people in. It's always saying, stay a while. And it looks so high end, and yet, we feel welcome. I think about at Thanksgiving coming to your home, and is one of our traditions, kind of, as all of us get together around Thanksgiving. And it, as someone who doesn't get to go home for Thanksgiving, it is incredible to be with friends, and the way that your home is laid out, where we can all fit in your home. And there is a table and space, and even though it's, like, very decorated and very high end, it feels like, no, this is a place where humans come and where humans spend time. And I love that you've made that conscious effort for it to be both beautiful but approachable. And I think that is really fun, because I think as someone who is trying to help people think about the spaces that we gather, which is so funny, right? In the middle of a coronavirus outbreak, the conversations, I'm having so many conversations with people who are saying like, I'm now valuing or understanding why it is that we gather, in the way that why that's more important than I ever realized. And so I think we're going to start thinking about our spaces and how do we make spaces that really do serve multi-purposes and isn't just like one thing, and how are they inviting, and what are the beautiful elements we can add to it. And when you go into a space and you're meeting with a client, just out of interest, what are the kind of questions that you're asking to figure out what their likes are? Because quite often what I find with people, like a girl yesterday sent me just a video of her home and said, "What do I do?" And I was like, well, that's kind of like 7 steps from now. Like, because the conversation we should have is like, what do you love? Or like, where do you feel like you start with people when you're having these, like, I want to change my space conversations?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's exactly what you said. How do you envision using this space? And is that actually how, you're going to, of course, we always can envision something. Is it the reality? But I do think most of the time when people say, I want to be able to have more people over for dinner. I want to be able to, throw a party, or I want to be able to, have my mom come stay with us. I think those things are usually people know what's missing in a larger sense from their space that will allow them to like make it more comfortable for people or more.
Oh, that's a great question. Start with what's missing.
And yeah, I think a lot of times it can be something as simple as like layout, like moving a couch in such a way that it won't block people when they come in the door, that it'll feel, it's kind of that whole feng shui thing. So sometimes it can be really simple. And I think too, it's like, I know a lot of times people get overwhelmed because they think, well, it won't ever be exactly what I want, so I'm not going to do anything. Or like, if I can't do all of it at once, I'm not going to do it. But I think spaces that seem collected are usually more appealing, at least to me. I'm somebody who likes like a very collected look, and I like spaces that have both old and new things. Like, I think it's important for spaces to have a few old things because it can give a space some soul. So I think, if you can't do it all at once, that's okay. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. Sometimes I was reading today, so many people were saying that they bought flowers when they went to the grocery store during this quarantine, and how much beauty and transformation just getting some flowers and putting them in a vase or putting them in a glass and having fresh flowers can do. So, something as small as that can make a difference, can make you feel cared for and your space feel cared for. So I think one of the biggest issues is like, don't feel like because I can't do it all now, I shouldn't do anything.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that can go for a home, that can go for a community. Take one thing, one area even. I know that a lot of folks have been like organizing one drawer during this quarantine time. I'm working twice as hard as I was. I was working a lot of hours before, but I love hearing from people that they're taking this time that for some of them is downtime, and they're doing the little, like, what's one project I can do that doesn't require me to leave my home? And what does that look like? And how does that change my sense of, no one has control right now. We don't have control over what's going on. And as much as people want to scream that they know, they don't. And so, and the truth of the matter is in life, so often we don't have control. And so it's like an area where we can maybe not offer control, but offer a sense of like, oh, I can participate in this. I can change this one thing. I can move things, and newness comes of it, because I think there's just an ability to bring about the beauty that's already hidden in a space, or, moving furniture around, or repurposing something. It really does give new energy and life to the person doing it, even, and the people walking in. I love that.
It does. And you know what? We are all inherently creative. Like, I believe that in the depths of who I am. Like, it's not that some people are creative and some people just aren't. I think we all have that down in us. And so, saying like, oh, I could move this, whatever. I could use this cup as a candle holder, or I could moving something that's in one room to another room, just to give yourself a fresh perspective. I think anybody can do that. And if you're getting in this kind of rut in your house or your apartment where you feel like things are just not fresh, I think a great way to freshen things up is to try to think about using things for a purpose that maybe wasn't the original purpose they were intended for. Whether that's throwing a little welcome, a rug. Some of us have those little teeny rugs that are like, you might, I don't know, not a doormat, but like doormat size rug. Like, put it on the wall. Do something different that you maybe wouldn't have originally thought of doing, just to freshen up your space, or to get yourself excited about your space again. I think it's true. So much of it is about perspective. And
I love that. And you can get inspired if you even go on Pinterest, or you go online and you can look up things like, uses for rugs and things that you've never thought of. You have never thought of the things. And oftentimes it's people who are not quote unquote professionals who are getting this different eyesight, different way of looking at the world. And changing one little thing makes it open up and look different. I've noticed even when I've used furniture in a different way than they've been using it before, in my community gathering spaces and things like that, people are like, I've never thought of that. We've had that for 50 years. And I think we just have the potential to do that again and again. And I hate that we sometimes throw things out and buy new things. And I love that even Marie Kondo's got us thinking about, what do we really want to keep? And if we want to make space so that we can notice the beautiful things we already have, I just think it's it's life-giving, and, and it's essential. And I think sometimes in seasons like now, where it feels like, okay, what we're going to need is more people who are, doctors and all that. And yes, that's absolutely needed, but we're also going to need the people who are able to help bring joy to folks in the midst of what can feel like just heavy tragedy. And I think we don't need to belittle that, like, oh, this one is better than this. And yes, that's life-saving, but there's also soul. There's a soul and a being, and it's all part of the same thing. And I think all parts of us have to be woken up and taken care of. And so I'm grateful for the ways that you make space for people, even in the way that you design. So I have one last official question for you. What is one tangible way, so just one way, that people can make space for others in their home or in like any sort of way? What is one tangible way you think people can make space for others?
I mean, I think the thing that I've been thinking the most about, probably also failing at a lot with my kids, as we're all on top of each other right now. But, I've been finally got around to reading The Universal Christ. And I've had it by Richard Rohr. I've had it since it came out, and I just, for some reason, have not picked it up until recently. And it's actually been really grounding and encouraging over the past few weeks. But he was talking about this idea of, like, if we believe that God is this God of shame, then we're going to put that shame on other people. We're going to, project that shame onto other people. And so I think at the spaces that I want to create are spaces that are free of shame. And where people can be vulnerable and not be afraid of what the reaction is going to be. Where people feel fully accepted. I know that even, as one of the things that has been really great about just going to therapy is like feeling like, okay, I can be fully myself and I'm not going to be shamed. And so
I can have color in my life.
Yes, absolutely. So seeing the inherent goodness and beauty and life in people, and the more that people have done that for me, I think the more I'm able to actually be that person that I do want to be. And the more I'm able to actually give that to others. So yeah, I think spaces without shame, that would be.
I love that. And it's a big thing, but it's a little thing. It's a thing of like, I chatted with a designer the other day who was saying it's so hard for him to convince his clients in the beginning, I'm not judging what you've done before.
Wow.
And I think that's the piece, that's the part that I say, oh my gosh, that's the pastoral element, because people are bringing you into sometimes their most sacred space, their home.
Absolutely.
And the embarrassment that some folks feel like I have too much or I don't have enough or whatever it might be. And to have someone come in and say, this is not about shame.
Yeah.
It's about, seeing you and maybe seeing more of you and offering more of you, and suggesting. I think it's beautiful. Jessie, I am so glad to call you a friend. I'm so glad that I get to see your business come to life, because I think you are so talented, and I love being in your home. It's like my favorite game to play. What's changed? What furniture has moved? And then I love that your husband has his place downstairs that is just the NC State dungeon.
He's been spending a lot of time down there.
It's so great. But I love that you make space even for him to be like, that is, you go live there. But it is such a gift to know you. And I can't wait for other people who listen to the show to check out your work. And your words were so helpful. So thank you for that in the midst of all this craziness. And I know we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to our conversation. After chatting with Jessie, I find myself wondering, how can I create shame-free spaces? As I look forward to a time when we can gather together again, I want to create the kind of spaces like Jessie does, where people feel invited to stay a while with a sense that they belong. To check out Jessie's designs, go to her Instagram account, @JessieLaneInteriors. I guarantee you will be inspired. Now, friends, before this week's inspirational quote, I want to ask for your help in creating a question and opinion episode. All you have to do is shoot me a question on either Twitter or Instagram @RevSarahHeath, or you could leave us a message by going to anchor.fm/Sarah-Heath, or you can just Google and try to find Making Spaces with Rev Sarah Heath. Ask anything from how to create space through design, or what an inclusive space feels like, or any sort of community and making space question you may have. I will have my panel of incredible friends, and they're going to help me create an episode just for you, the listener. All right, today's inspirational quote is inspired by my conversation with Jessie and comes from someone that I like to call Saint Brene Brown. Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Friends, I hope that you will start letting yourself be seen. Making Spaces is edited by Stephen Burnette from the cult Popcast. The introduction music is It Can Be Done by Ari via Epidemic Sound. If you like this podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And leave us a review. It helps other listeners find us and let us know that we're on the right track.